Hi there, and welcome to another interview. Today I've got the fabulous Deborah with me, and I'm going to ask Deborah the same question I ask absolutely everybody. Hey, Deborah, why did you start thinking about the way you were eating?
Hi, Stephen. Thank you for inviting me on your podcast. Well, a couple of years ago, just over 2 years ago, I got to age 64 and I was a mess, really. I was overweight. I was in pain. I had zero energy. My blood pressure was sort of getting up there, borderline high. And I had pain in my hips, really. And my sister and best friend had both, well, my sister had just had a hip replacement and was waiting for her second one. And my friend was about to go for her first one. And they sort of said, you must go to the doctor, get your name down for a replacement. She said, just what happens when you get in your 60s, everything starts to fall to bits. And that's what you need to do. So I went along to the doctor. I was sent for x-rays, hip x-rays. When the results came back, I went along to see him. And he said, well, your x-rays are fine, actually. You know, you don't need new hips. So I was quite shocked. He examined me. I nearly went through the roof when he examined my hips. And he said, basically, you have something called trochanteric bursitis. Which, from what I understand, is inflammation in a big way. It was very painful when he manipulated my hips. And there's nothing we can do about it, really. Go home, put your feet up, ice. If it gets do some exercises. He sent me home with a sheet of exercises. If it gets really bad, maybe we could do cortisone injections. And I was pretty despondent, really, because in my head, I thought I needed a hip replacement, and seeing the fantastic result my sister had, I thought, that's great. You know, I'll be able to have an operation and everything will be fine. But to be told there's just nothing you can do for your pain is quite hard, really. And at the time, I was going upstairs one at a time, coming downstairs one at a time, still walking my dogs, but very slowly, and used to try and make sure the roots were flat, and just sit with my legs up whenever I could. I also had a swelling down below my left knee. Towards the evening, that ankle would swell up, and the doctor had sent me for a venous scan as well. Found I didn't have any DVT or anything like that, but they found a Baker's cyst behind my knee, which again, wear and tear, and nothing we can do. We could send you for x-rays, but they wouldn't do anything yet because, you know, you're still walking without a stick. Um, so I was quite despondent, really, and I think you sort of start to become into a victim mode because, you know, well, I'm in my 60s now, and this is what happens, and I've always been very active, and it was quite a shock to me. So just as it happened during that time, I was on, you know how these things happen. I was on YouTube, and a video popped up, and it was Dr. Ken Berry about carnivore, and I thought it was crazy. Thought, you know, nobody needs to eat that way. But I clicked on it, as you do, and I started listening to him, and it started to make sense. And what he was saying, and I think this was big for me, was that not everybody needs to go carnivore. You can start by just cutting out seed oils, grains, and sugars. You know, just try those three things are the most important things to cut out, and cut out, you know, and go low carb, basically. So I thought, well, I can do that. And I think for me, it was reading the comments too, because like everybody skipped to the comments, and so many people were saying that this way of eating had helped with their pain, cured their pain, and, you know, far worse conditions than I had. So I thought, well, I'll give it a try. And I'd sort of told myself that I could have a treat at the weekend. So that was my sort of, if I did it during the week, then I could maybe have something at the weekend. So I did, and I went very low cal quite quickly. At the time, I was intermittent fasting. It seemed to be the trend, the thing to do, and both my boys were intermittent fasting. So I'd been doing that for over a year. So I'd break my fast about 4 p.m. with a massive bowl of fruit and yogurt. I was fruit and veg girl, really healthy. I thought I was doing everything healthy. And then I'd have an evening meal, which would be a huge salad or, vegetables, some protein, but, that's the way I was eating. So I swapped out the fruit and yogurt for bacon and eggs, and then had a steak or something in the evening. I was still having some veg. I was growing my own at the time, so I was still taking stuff from the garden, but I cut it down drastically. It was very, very fast for me. I know it's not for everybody, but within a week, the first thing that happened was I stopped snoring. I had really bad snoring, really bad. My husband used to say it rattled the walls. And he said it was like turning off a switch. Literally, one night I snored, the next night I didn't snore at all, and I've never snored since. And that was within the first week. Within a few weeks, I'd gone down a dress size, I would say in the first month. And I just started to feel so much better. That a lot of the inflammation went very quickly. And lots of other little things as well that you don't realize you're putting up with until, this way of eating, really. So yeah, it was very quick for me.
Yeah, it is very quick. And, the stopping snoring is something I've heard time and time again. And the drop in dress size. So what about your friends and family when you started swapping out the healthy yogurt and fruit and the
Oh, I think you're frozen.
artery clogging eggs and bacon breakfast? What was the reception from your you said you got two boys. What was they thinking?
Right. Well, my boys were especially with Cameron. Cameron is my younger son. He has a social media page, as you know. I think you've interviewed him, haven't you? Coach Carnivore Cam. We discuss health all the time, and food and eating and exercise and everything. So we've both been very, very interested in our health. He was actually almost, synchronicity. He was almost doing looking at the same thing as I was, nearly at the same time. I think he was following Dr. Anthony Chaffee at that time. So we discussed it, and I think he saw what an amazing impact it had on me so quickly. So they both actually very quickly went, especially him. He very quickly went on to carnivore. By the Christmas, I think we were all pretty strict carnivore.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I loved what you said about the hip replacement, because I've never heard anyone really say was looking forward to that hip replacement, but I understand the pain was so bad you were looking forward to it. How is your hip now and your Baker's cyst and all those pains?
So the hip, I mean, completely went, and it's hard to remember, isn't it, exactly when pain stops and starts. I should have written a diary, really. But it was very quick. I would say within a few months. But I went quite strict quite quickly. Having started saying I'm just going to cut out these food groups, I sort of I think it happens to a lot of people. You sort of think, why am I standing there cooking onions? Why am I doing this? Are they doing me any good? So I sort of went quite strict, and I think the stricter I went, the better I felt, and that was the key for me. Little things like I'd always had patches of eczema. I'd always I suffered from mouth ulcers a lot. I'd get one a month. Constipation. I've had chronic constipation most of my life. And, the constipation took longer. Some things took longer. But, it very quickly I started to feel, and the energy, I think the energy was huge for me. because I do love walking my animals, my dogs, and I'm not a sedentary person. So getting that energy back and feeling good, being able to go to the gym, started lifting weights. I think it took about a year, I would say, before I lost all the weight. I've lost 3.5 stone. I think that took about a year. So I'd say to feel really good, it took, other things, just were a bit slower going, but mostly I felt really good within 6 months, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of weight,
Yeah.
sort of 48 pounds, something like that.
Yeah.
Just for the American people that are watching, because in
Yeah,
the
about
UK,
£50 it was. Yeah.
yeah, we
Yeah.
talk in stones and pounds.
We do. We do.
Yes. So what about your husband then? Because you mentioned your husband earlier. Does he
Yeah.
eat carnivore now? Or
Yeah. He was a bit slower coming to the party. But he's, I would say he's 98% carnivore.
Mhm.
98%. He still has that odd little urge to have something else, but that's fine. But yeah, I mean, if we'll go out, we'll just eat steak, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. And your other son, does he do it as well?
Yeah, he does. He does. Yes, he's fully carnivore as well. Yeah.
Right, cool. So yes, all converted. But what about the broader social circle of yours? So, for instance, you said you've had friends at hip replacements. I mean, is there any? I don't want to put words into your mouth. Is there any sort of? Oh wow! If I'd have known about that, I wouldn't have had a hip replacement. Is there any of that sort of chat?
No, not really. No, I can't say there is. They are interested. My friend will ask me so much about it, and I will send her, links to videos and things I've watched that I know she'll be interested in. But then nothing else comes of it. No, I haven't had an awful lot of success, but I haven't preached to anybody about it. I just do my own thing. If we go out with friends, we just, order the meat or whatever, so they know that we are eating this way. And it
Mm.
does promote some interest. But I think it's a huge step for most people, isn't it? And I think to me, it's always been a person's why is always the most important thing. Why are you doing this?
Mm.
And for me, it was, I'd got to an age where I was in pain and I wasn't happy with myself, and I hadn't been particularly overweight when I was younger, but sort of from menopause, sort of when I sort of got into my 50s, things started, that's when I started to put weight on. Um, I did do 10 years of bioidentical hormones when I got into when I was 50, really. And I was doing rhythmic dosing. I was living in America at the time. My second husband is American. And so I did that for 10 years. When we came back to live in the UK, it was hard to get the hormones that I was on. So I came off them, and since then I've had quite a few problems with menopausal symptoms, which I suppose, when I went on BHRT, I expected it just to cure every symptom. And at first it was really good. But then the longer you stay on it, I was finding I was having breakthrough symptoms and a lot of flashes. Sleep insomnia has always been very big for me. I've had this restless leg syndrome, which I always put down to hormones because I actually had it quite badly when I was pregnant with both my children. Um, so those symptoms came back in my 60s as well. Um, Carnivore has definitely helped with that. I'm still having some hot flushes at night, um, but definitely the insomnia and the restless leg. Restless leg has gone away. That went, but that took about 18 months to fully go away.
Yeah, it's
So yeah,
brilliant that you
everything's
stay both.
improving.
Yeah. So would you say that? Did you say that hot flushes are less though, less frequent?
Yes, yes. I seem to go for I can go for a week without having a hot flush. And I think, yes. cracked it now. This is it. And then I'll just get a few days and all of a sudden they'll come back. And I don't know whether it's stress related. It could be. I think, all of us in the modern world have stresses, and I think I've had my fair share of stress over the years. So, it could be related to that. If I'm stressed, I get more hot flushes, but definitely huge improvement to where I was a couple of years ago to now.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously menopause hits so many people, and I think you're right. In the States, they do offer a lot of bioidenticals as treatments, but I get so many people that have tried that and it hasn't worked. And I think you mentioned sort of initially some of the like HRT, some of these things do initially work, but then they just seem to stop, and then all the symptoms come back. Whereas with this way of eating, it seems to just make the most sense to the body, maybe, and the
Yes.
body adapts,
Yeah.
and the symptoms just get less, and it can take a while. I mean, if your restless legs took 18 months, a lot of people would not be as patient as you. So, but I often say that vitamin P is the secret. Patience is
Yeah.
the thing that people need to sort of learn more about, because the problem is there are a lot of miracle stories on the internet with this way of eating where it's 3 weeks and I was off my diabetic meds, which, is obviously going to get a lot of traction. But for those people where it's taking longer, it can be, oh, I wish it was the magic wand. But I always explain that the magic wand, the reason you see that on YouTube is because that's the algorithm, because it's a story that people like. They're not going to share the
Yeah.
story of, oh, it took me 2 years and I'm still not quite there, because it's just not as exciting. But it's still a success story, and it's still very valid. My longest client is 4 years before everything resolved. Well, that's a long
Wow.
time, but a lifetime, of problems. Problems from
Yeah.
18 to 50. That's a long time. So I think one of the things that I like the way that you're talking is you're very understated about it and very sort of modest about it. Do you think that's across all the carnivore community? Because I feel we don't preach very much. I think we wait for people to come to us. Do you think that's a thing?
Yes, I do. I do actually. I think people are. I think once you're comfortable with yourself, and I think carnivore does that. And I think people they don't feel the need to shout and tell everybody about it in that way. But by doing things like this, we can get the message across. And obviously what you do and what Cameron does, it's very important to get the message across. Because it does work and it is helping people, and that's the main thing. But I don't think we need to go around rallying people and you must do this. Think that people will come to it because they meet people, they watch a podcast or whatever, and they will give it a go. But I would say definitely give it a go, but just give it a bit longer than maybe a week or two.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I mentioned the timescale, because, the 30-day challenge is
Yeah,
very,
yeah,
it gets a lot of traction, a 30-day challenge, but really 90 days is probably better, but even longer is even better.
yeah. But I
One of
have
my,
to say, sorry,
carry on.
I have to say that for me, I have tried many diets, like a lot of women, when I was younger, and not had success. I remember I put on 4 stone when I was pregnant with my first son, which is a huge amount. And he was an IVF baby in 1987. So in those days, it was quite a rare thing to have an IVF baby. So I think I was so frightened. I virtually didn't move and just lay in bed eating for 9 months. Put on a huge amount of weight and then lost some of it, but most of it stayed. So I decided to do, I don't know whether you ever heard of the Cambridge diet. Do you remember that one?
Yes. Hmm.
It was just rubbish. I mean, just liquids. I mean, you just ate shakes and that's all you did for every
Right.
day, day after day. Um, and I did that for about 2 weeks. I didn't lose any weight, nothing. I mean, I remember my mother was she just could not believe it. She said, how can anybody just drink liquids for 2 weeks and actually not lose weight? And so I was desperate, you know, I mean, nothing seemed to work for me. I also did Slimmers World. I don't really remember that one. And the one where you had the green days and the red days, and you could only eat carbs on one day and proteins and fats on another day. And I went along to the village hall where this woman was holding this Slimming World. And we were given sheets of everything we had to follow for the week. And we went back after a week. And she had a stage at the front of the hall, and everybody had to go up one by one and get weighed, you know, sort of in front of everybody else. So nice shaming going on there. And we went at one by one, and I'd put on 2 pounds in that week. And she was just incensed. You know, she was like, you know, what a shame you couldn't actually follow the diet, you know, and you cheated. And I was just like, I've followed it absolutely to the letter. You know, I was so upset, and she just wouldn't believe me. She said, you cannot have eaten this way and not lost weight. So I just picked up my coat and bag and walked out the door. That was
Yeah.
another failed dieting experience. But actually, the only thing that ever did work was Atkins. I did that in the 90s. And I bought Dr. Atkins' book, and I followed the diet. And I did lose weight. And that was the only one that I actually did lose weight. And but of course, you know, I came off it because the pressure was, you know, this is, friends and family were saying, this is dangerous. You know, this is not, you can't sustain this way of eating, you'll have a heart attack or whatever. And so I bowed to pressure and I came off that. But yeah, that was the actual only one that did work at the time.
Yeah, the Slimmers World experience sounds horrific, and I can't believe that
It
was
was awful.
actually allowed. It's just ridiculous. And like you
I
know,
know.
your mother saying about the liquids, I'm sure they were just very carby and
Yes, I'm sure.
useless for you, health wise, nutrition wise. Um, I mean, that's very fascinating what you said about the pushback of Atkins and how many people said it was dangerous, which of course is the media. I mean, that they're driven by big food and
Yeah.
big pharma and the vested interest to make sure that you still buy cereals and breads and all these high profitable foods that have a long shelf life. And that's still around today, isn't it? I mean, all we're saying to
Yeah.
people is eat eggs and meat and fish and just normal, real foods that humans have eaten for millions of years. And we're told it's dangerous. But we can have this monocropped glyphosate covered cereal and these highly processed foods with all these colors, and apparently that's fine. I just I think the world's so topsy turvy at the moment, and I think just going back to Cameron, you mentioned Cameron there, so you know I deliberately didn't want to, but we will mention. I mean, he just puts content on social media and gets a lot of hate comments just for saying eat some eggs, have some salmon, have some beef. I mean, that's all he's
He
saying.
does.
He's getting hate comments,
Yeah.
trying to help people get their health back.
Yeah. Yeah. It is unbelievable the amount of comments he gets, and that, you know, hate comments that he does get. Um, I mean, as a mother, for, you know, the only person I'm worried about is him. But he is so motivated and so believes in what he does. And I know it doesn't have any impact at all on his life at all. So, you know, uh, therefore it doesn't impact me because I know he's absolutely fine with it. And I actually feel sorry for people that have to write comments like that, because I think a lot of hate comes from a place of fear, doesn't it? And people are very frightened of stepping out of the box and not being you know, not being a part of a group or whatever. And you know, that they lash out because of that uncomfortable feeling. And also, if we're being lied to about this, what else are we being lied to about? And I think that's hard for a lot of people to open that can of worms. So the easiest thing is just to, you know, call him an idiot or whatever they like to say about him. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
You
and
know,
that's true. I
and
mean,
by the way, he does have eyebrows. He does have eyebrows. They're just very, very pale. That seems to be a comment he gets a lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
I get that as well. But looking at I've definitely got eyebrows. Yes. Well, I think, if the hate comments stick out, but again, it's one of those things behind the scenes. I get comments which I think are unbelievable because just an ordinary person having a success story, and I'll get the odd comment like "this is BS" and "this is not possible" and all this sort of stuff. These people, I mean, like yourself, you haven't got anything to sell. You're just telling me your story. But just for people that are watching this thinking, well, that sounds terrible. Normally it's 98% because the ratio is shown. 98% of people is positive. It's only like 2%, but they get all the attention because they're being nasty. So
Yeah.
that's another thing I think happens. You don't get much attention by going, "Oh, it's a fantastic story. I really enjoy that." But if you rant and rage and put swear words in and you get more replies. You get the oxygen of engagement and interest. So I think for some people, it's just stirring up trouble when being the centre of attention and actually being deliberately contentious.
Yeah.
I think, but yeah, Cameron. Yeah, I've met him. It doesn't bother him. I know. And when you're sure of the message, I mean, I'm the same. I get hate comments, but I know it's the right message to send out there. I definitely
Yeah.
do. Just talking to
But
people
he
about
also
what.
gets a lot of positive comments too.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
also
actually,
gets
that's
positive
the same.
comments.
Yeah.
And not only that, he gets, people who he knows he's changed their life in some way. And that's more important to him than anything. It's those, people who come up to him or people who message him privately and say, what a difference this has made to his life, to their lives.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing, isn't it?
But the reason for, trying to be broad and speak to everybody, I mean, I saw you on one of his videos or he mentioned you, and I thought, well, that would be great because um, there will be women of your age. I mean, I'm 60, so, I'm not being ageist, who wouldn't watch Cameron because they would think,
Yes.
well, how can
Yeah.
this person relate to me? Even if he is talking about menopause or what happened to his mum, I think the best thing is to have the mum on, have the person that's experienced it, because then you get this wonderful crossover where I can have someone on that's very young, bodybuilder or an athlete, then I can get somebody who's sort of 99, and I just think the more we can say this fits for every lifestyle because it is a proper human diet. I know that's Ken Berry's phrase, but that sums it up beautifully. It's the proper human diet. It's what we're meant to eat,
Absolutely.
and that's why things get better. And I'm going to go right back to the beginning of the interview because you said that you were given no hope. There's nothing you can do about this. And that was not true because there was. You
Yeah.
did it. And I think that's the
Yeah.
number of what frustrates me the most. It's never about nutrition when you're in that situation, according to the people in the white coats.
I have been back to the doctor though and told him, and he's only young and he was very open and he just said, "Good for you. Blood pressure's normal." And he actually said, "I tried keto myself once and I did lose weight." And that was it. That was the was the conversation, and I was saying, look at look what's happened to me, you other patients that are coming to you with diabetes or anything, this should be your first port of call, not, yeah, I suppose keto does work. It's a
Yeah,
strange,
it's very strange. I was talking about an anti-Chafee interview with Dr. Rachel Brown, and they were talking to some specialist, and they were trying to offer the science. And he said, "I don't care about the science. I just care about the guidance." They're not interested in the facts. They just want to be given guidance. And I think that's quite a sad mindset, especially as the guidance is tell people there's no hope, especially when you've gone back and they must be exposed to people that have actually got somewhere and not had pain for the rest of their lives. So I
yeah.
don't really understand the dogma of sticking to the rules and just saying there's no hope. I hope that we are making a difference, and I think we are slowly but surely. As you say, that doctor said, "Oh, I tried keto, I lost a bit of weight." At least that's something. Maybe the next time you see someone that's in your situation, you go, "Oh, maybe there's something to this."
Yes, yes. Maybe. Let's hope so. Let's hope
Let's hope.
so.
Yes. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. Is there anything that you'd like to finish the interview on? Is there any advice you can give to someone that's maybe on the fence about this way of eating?
Yeah, on the fence, I think I would say just go for it. I mean, you know, as I said before, look at your why. You know, what is it about your life that you want to change, and try it. I mean, if if you ask any sort of longer term carnivore, if they have any regrets, I mean, I'll say it myself that my only regret is I didn't do it earlier. You know, before my knees are clicking away now, and you know, the earlier you do it, the better results you're going to get. You know, I wish I was Cameron's age when I'd started carnivore. So you know, don't delay. Just go for it. And what's the worst that could happen? I mean, you know, at worst you've just had a few, you know, 90 days of your life where you've been eating differently. You know, but no, I'd say try it, go for it. And you're never too old either. You know, there's success stories of people in their 80s and beyond. So yeah, just do it.
Yeah, just go for it.
And
That's
follow
brilliant.
Cameron. Go and give Cameron some love.
I couldn't endorse that more. He is absolutely brilliant. And that's one of the other things I would say. Everybody behind the scenes, I've been very lucky to meet a lot of the bigger influencers, either online or in person, and they're all lovely people. I mean, that's the thing. They are all genuine people, and all they want to do is
Yeah,
help people
I can
get
believe
help.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So, Deborah, thanks for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me, Stephen. I've enjoyed chatting with you.
Thank you.